We all love our old computers. Finally installing the things you wanted back then is just awesome. But there's one thing we can't get around: hard drives. Either they are broken, defective, or are hard to find in a specific size. Seems like it could be difficult with retro PCs, right? No, there's a modern solution to this problem. Hey everyone. Well, after a long time, I have to do some buying guides here. And why not about this topic? Modern hard drives for old computers. Because yes, there really are some solutions. I wanted to show you what I would recommend for each generation of PCs. That means I divide this into computer generations. From the first PCs from around 1981 to 95, then from 1995 to 99, 2000 to 2009, and then 2009 plus. That's because each computer generation has different interfaces for hard drives and other system features and so on. For example, my 286 PC here has an MFM hard drive that definitely can't read anything. Or this IBM Desk Star, which breaks down and falls more than anything else. Well, I think, yes, that's how we do it here. If you want to fast forward to a specific point, the timestamps are listed in the description down below, if you are interested in a particular time period. But after all that, let's start with the first generation of PCs from 1981 to 1995. Such PCs definitely have an ISA slot, or even if they are a newer computer, an IDE controller as a card or already integrated on the motherboard. It is likely that each of these PCs runs MS-DOS or an early version of Windows. In that case, I recommend compact flash cards with a suitable adapter. These adapters are available for the ISA slot or also as an IDE interface. Both variants can also be accessed from the outside to make data transfer between a modern PC more easily. Some of these are still available with low storage capacity, which is good for those older systems, as they cannot see 4 GB or more, for example. These cards are good and perfectly suitable for MS-DOS. With Windows, however, on the other hand, it is good if you have a lot of RAM and or disable swap file. Because Windows can use part of the hard drive as RAM, and this would be a death sentence to these CF cards due to the constant writing. This is not a problem on the DOS, because on the DOS it reads more than it writes to it. And for CF cards, I would recommend Transcend or the SanDisk cards, and not some no-name products from Amazon. eBay still has many of the small CF cards available. Although used, but yeah. And some small CF cards are necessary. For example, this 486 laptop here only recognizes hard drives under 8 GB. Over 8 GB is more common for the next generation of computers. The PCs from 1995 to 1999. The ones that run Windows 95, 98, ME or even 2000. To make it short, there are two solutions, although the other one is slowly becoming unprofitable due to the decline of supply of small hard drives. Technically speaking, hard drives up to 137 GB or even 2 TB work with Windows 95, 98 and ME, but in really good conditions. In reality, however, 32 GB is a sweet spot for those systems. Even 8 GB or 16 GB is quite a lot for these systems. And SD cards are available in these storage sizes. HDDs, however, not really anymore. And these SD card adapters are just like CF adapters. There are some that can also be accessed from the outside to make data transfer easier. And it works great. With my Windows 98 PC, it runs on an SD card like I shown you, and it works perfectly. The only catch is that not every SD card works properly for me, because I had some SD cards that would work and some other not. Don't ask me why. And to ensure that these existing ones run for a long time, I would recommend also deactivating the swap file here, because SD cards can also suffer from the constant writing. And fun fact, SD and CF cards are not recognized as such in these old systems, but rather as regular hard drives. This will be difficult in future systems as they will be recognized as removable media. For PCs from 2000-2009 running Windows XP, Vista or Mac OS X. And Windows XP can technically handle hard drives up to 2 TB, some of which have a SATA connection, and for the few XP computers that doesn't have a SATA interface, there are adapters from IDE to SATA interface, which I also use in my Xbox. But you can also see here that I have an SSD in here installed, instead of a conventional hard drive. In principle, I would advise against using SSDs under XP, Vista or OS X, or even in the original Xbox, as they do not support the trim. Trim can explain as follow. Imagine the SSD as a bookshelf. When you take out the book, so means you delete a file, the SSD without trim still sees that the shelf is full. It doesn't know if there is space available again. With trim, the operating system says, hey, there's space available here, and the SSD doesn't have to search through everything first, but can immediately write to it again quickly. If the SSD constantly does not receive any trim commands, it may slow down more quickly and fail sooner. However, with some systems, we have no option but to use an SSD. And it's unlikely that anyone would have a computer from this generation running 24/7. That's why I would per se, if you have the chance with a PC like this, go for a SATA hard drive or use an IDE adapter. For laptops that require a 2.5-inch drive, there are also adapters that work with mSATA. However, I can't tell you much about it, because I don't have one here as I haven't needed one yet. I had more need for SSDs, which brings us to the newer systems. PCs from 2009 onwards. Starting with Windows 7 and Mac OS X 10.6 Snow Leopard, trim is also supported by the system, making SSDs a valid option. Windows 7 has this feature built in. Mac OS X, on the other hand, it's Apple. Of course there are stumbling blocks. If you have an official Apple SSD, there is native support on the OS X. Other brands of SSDs must be activated with an enabler for OS X. So you have to cheat the system to say that there is an Apple SSD installed. And starting with these systems, namely Windows 7 and OS X Snow Leopard, there are still many hard drives that can be used with these systems. Now that's why I have much less stress finding a hard drive. Although I have to say, this is January of 2026, which means that if in the future 16 TB hard drives are the norm, well, these systems also suffer with their limits. But before we finish, here's an honorable mention. The iPods. The iPod Classic, iPod Mini, and generally all iPods that are not a Nano, Shuffle or Touch have a hard drive built in. Don't believe me? Well, take a look at this hard drive from an iPod video. It's a 1.8-inch drive. And even the iPod Mini has a built-in hard drive in the size of a CF card. Back then, this was great for large storage capacity to store an entire album in high quality. Nowadays, these are no longer available new, and they break down even faster than the ice machines at McDonald's. For iPods, there are iFlash adapters, which can be adapted to just anything, even to an mSATA hard drive. The trim command is almost useless here, because the adapters already does that, and the iPods only read from the drive, except when syncing, of course. Yeah, and these 1.8-inch hard drives are also built in some computers, such as the 2008 MacBook Air. And I have no idea what the storage limit is on these things, but I once saw some video from DankPods where was managed to get 4 TB working in an iPod. And that's totally crazy, man. And it is just as crazy as subscribing here to stay up to date on this stuff and other stuff from me. And if I forgot anything, well, down there are comments. And well, then I can say, we'll see us.